A voice does not rise because the world allows it to. A voice rises because silence becomes too heavy to carry. Joe Ranga is not just a name, it is a reminder that even in the quietest corners of life, courage can grow. This is the story of a voice that did not wait for permission, applause, or comfort. It rose from doubt, resistance, and moments when giving up seemed easier than standing tall. Every great voice begins in uncertainty. Joe Ranga's journey teaches us that strength is not born from perfection, but from persistence. When the world tried to define limits, this voice chose to challenge them. When fear whispered, "Stay quiet," purpose answered louder. A rising voice is not always loud, but it is always clear. It speaks truth when lies feel safer. It stands firm when compromise seems tempting. It continues even when progress feels invisible. Joe Ranga represents everyone who has ever been unheard, underestimated, or overlooked. This voice rises not to dominate, but to inspire. Not to impress, but to empower. Not to shout over others, but to remind them of their own strength. Because when one voice rises with honesty and courage, it creates space for many more to rise after it. Every powerful voice begins its journey in silence. Not the peaceful kind, but the heavy, suffocating silence that comes from being unheard, ignored, or underestimated. Silence is often mistaken for weakness, but in reality, it is a place where strength quietly forms. It is where thoughts mature, pain gathers meaning, and purpose slowly takes shape. Before a voice rises, it listens. It absorbs rejection, observes injustice, and feels the weight of unspoken emotions. Silence becomes a teacher. It reveals how deeply words matter and how dangerous it can be to live without them. In silence, one learns the cost of holding back, dreams delayed, truths buried, and potential restrained. A rising voice is not impulsive. It is forged through moments when speaking felt impossible, unsafe, or pointless. It is shaped by nights of self-doubt, by questions that echoed without answers, and by the realization that remaining silent only allows fear to grow stronger. Over time, silence stops being protection and starts becoming a prison. This is the moment transformation begins. When silence becomes heavier than fear, expression becomes inevitable. The voice does not rise to seek attention, it rises to reclaim identity. It rises because something inside refuses to stay invisible any longer. What was once suppressed turns into conviction. What was once quiet becomes intentional. Silence sharpens awareness. It teaches patience, depth, and restraint. And when the voice finally rises, it carries weight because it has been tested. It speaks with authenticity because it was born from experience, not impulse. That is why voices that rise from silence often resonate the deepest. They are not empty sounds but echoes of endurance, reflection, and truth. A voice born from silence carries purpose, not noise. It carries meaning shaped by everything it endured before it ever spoke. Choosing courage over comfort is never an easy decision. Comfort offers safety, familiarity, and the illusion of peace. It tells us to stay where we are, to avoid risk, to remain quiet, and to accept situations even when they limit our growth. Courage, on the other hand, demands movement. It asks for action when hesitation feels natural and strength when fear feels overwhelming. A rising voice understands that comfort often disguises itself as wisdom. It whispers that now is not the right time, that the risk is too high, or that staying silent is the smarter choice. But over time, comfort becomes restrictive. It slowly erodes confidence and keeps potential locked away. What once felt safe begins to feel stagnant. Courage begins the moment discomfort is accepted rather than avoided. It is the willingness to speak despite uncertainty, to stand despite trembling, and to move forward without guarantees. A courageous voice does not wait for perfect conditions. It rises in imperfect moments, knowing that growth is rarely comfortable. Choosing courage means embracing vulnerability. It means risking misunderstanding, criticism, or failure. But it also means gaining authenticity. When a voice chooses courage, it aligns action with truth. It no longer hides behind excuses or fear of judgment. Instead, it steps into responsibility for its own growth and message. Courage strengthens with use. Each brave decision reinforces confidence and weakens fear's control. Over time, courage transforms from a momentary act into a defining trait. Comfort fades, but courage builds momentum. And as the voice continues to rise, it becomes clear that true freedom and self-respect are found not in staying safe, but in standing strong. Identity is not formed in moments of success. It is shaped in the repeated decision to continue when progress feels slow or invisible. Persistence is the quiet force that defines who a person becomes over time. A rising voice is not created by a single bold moment, but by countless small acts of consistency that refuse to surrender. At the beginning, persistence often goes unnoticed. Effort does not immediately translate into results, and recognition may never come when it is expected. This is where many voices fade. Doubt creeps in, questioning whether the struggle is worth it or whether the effort matters at all. But persistence is not driven by applause, it is driven by belief. Each time a voice continues despite resistance, it strengthens its foundation. Setbacks do not erase progress, they refine it. Every challenge faced and endured becomes part of the voice's character. Persistence teaches resilience, patience, and self-trust. It transforms uncertainty into experience and hesitation into confidence. Over time, persistence becomes identity. The voice is no longer defined by circumstances but by commitment. It is recognized not for how loudly it speaks, but for how consistently it shows up. Even when results are delayed, persistence ensures growth is happening beneath the surface. A voice shaped by persistence carries credibility. It speaks with authority because it has survived doubt, delay, and discouragement. What began as effort becomes reputation, and what was once a struggle becomes a defining strength. Persistence does not just help a voice rise, it determines who that voice truly is. A powerful voice is not measured by how loud it speaks, but by how clearly it communicates its truth. Volume can attract attention for a moment, but clarity creates understanding that lasts. A rising voice recognizes that being heard is not the same as being meaningful. Noise may fill space, but clarity fills minds. Clarity begins with self-awareness. Before a voice can speak to others, it must understand its own message. Confusion weakens impact, while clarity strengthens purpose. When a voice knows what it stands for, it does not need to shout. Its confidence comes from alignment, not aggression. In a world full of distractions and constant noise, clarity becomes rare, and therefore powerful. Many speak but few are understood. A clear voice cuts through chaos because it is intentional. Every word carries direction, and every message reflects thought rather than impulse. This kind of voice earns trust, not just attention. Clarity also requires discipline. It means choosing precision over excess and meaning over emotion-driven reactions. A rising voice learns when to speak and when silence serves the message better. It understands that restraint can be more impactful than force. When clarity guides expression, the voice resonates deeper. It reaches people not by overwhelming them but by connecting with them. Such a voice influences not because it dominates conversations, but because it leaves understanding behind. Resistance is often viewed as an obstacle, but for a rising voice, it becomes a source of strength. Every form of opposition, doubt, criticism, rejection, or misunderstanding, tests resolve and reveals depth. A voice that rises learns early that acceptance is not guaranteed, and approval is not a requirement. When resistance appears, it exposes intention. It forces reflection on why the voice exists and what it stands for. Easy paths rarely demand conviction, but resistance demands commitment. Each challenge asks whether the message is worth defending, whether the effort is worth continuing, and whether the voice will remain true under pressure. Resistance strengthens by forcing adaptation. It sharpens communication, deepens understanding, and builds emotional resilience. A voice that faces opposition must learn to listen, adjust, and grow without losing its core. This process transforms vulnerability into confidence and uncertainty into resolve. Over time, resistance becomes familiar rather than intimidating. The voice no longer reacts defensively but responds with control and clarity. What once felt threatening becomes training. Strength develops not from avoiding resistance but from moving through it repeatedly. A voice shaped by resistance carries authenticity. It has been tested, challenged, and refined. Its strength is not theoretical. It is proven through endurance. And because of that, when it speaks, it carries weight earned through experience, not assumption. Doubt thrives in uncertainty, but it weakens in the presence of purpose. A rising voice does not eliminate doubt completely. Instead, it learns how to move forward despite it. Purpose becomes the anchor that keeps the voice steady when questions arise and confidence wavers. Without purpose, doubt controls direction. It amplifies fear, magnifies failure, and convinces the mind to hesitate. But when purpose is clear, doubt loses its authority. The voice understands why it must speak, and that understanding becomes stronger than fear of judgment or failure. Purpose provides focus. It turns scattered thoughts into intentional action. When a voice is guided by purpose, it does not seek validation from every response. Criticism becomes less personal and setbacks feel less final. Purpose reframes challenges as part of a larger journey rather than signs of inadequacy. As purpose deepens, confidence grows quietly. The voice no longer depends on constant reassurance. Even in moments of isolation or uncertainty, purpose continues to guide movement. Doubt may still appear, but it no longer decides the outcome. A voice driven by purpose speaks with conviction. Its strength comes not from certainty of success, but from clarity of intention. And with that clarity, doubt gradually fades into the background, unable to overpower direction. A rising voice rarely speaks only for itself. It carries the weight of countless untold stories, unexpressed emotions, and silenced experiences. When someone finds the courage to speak, they often become a reflection of those who could not. Representation is not claimed, it is earned through authenticity and responsibility. Many people live unheard not because they lack words, but because they lack space, confidence, or opportunity. A voice that rises from such conditions understands this reality deeply. It speaks with awareness, knowing that its message may echo for others who see themselves within it. This awareness creates depth and purpose beyond personal ambition. Representation requires empathy. A rising voice listens before it speaks. It recognizes struggles that are often dismissed and emotions that are rarely acknowledged. By articulating these shared experiences, the voice validates others and reminds them that their silence does not mean insignificance. With representation comes responsibility. The voice must remain grounded, honest, and inclusive. It must resist ego and remain connected to the people it represents. When authenticity is maintained, trust forms naturally, and the voice becomes a source of strength rather than authority. Through representation, a single voice becomes a bridge. It connects isolated individuals, turns silence into solidarity, and transforms personal expression into collective strength. Inspiration is one of the most powerful outcomes of a rising voice. When one person speaks with courage and authenticity, it disrupts fear in others. It proves that expression is possible, that resistance can be survived, and that silence is not permanent. A single voice, when genuine, becomes permission for others to find their own. People often wait for a sign before stepping forward. Inspiration provides that signal. It shifts perspective from "I can't" to "maybe I can." A rising voice does not instruct others to speak, it demonstrates what is possible through action. This demonstration is often more powerful than advice or motivation. Inspiration spreads quietly but steadily. One person gains courage, then another, and slowly a collective movement forms. Voices that once doubted their value begin to emerge, shaped by the example they witnessed. The original voice does not lose strength by inspiring others. Instead, its impact expands. As voices multiply, diversity of thought and experience grows. Each new voice adds dimension, perspective, and depth. Inspiration does not create copies, it creates confidence. It encourages individuality while reinforcing shared strength. A rising voice that inspires others leaves a lasting imprint. Its greatest impact is not how loudly it was heard, but how many others found the courage to speak because it existed. A true legacy is not created in a single moment of recognition. It is built through consistent action over time. A rising voice understands that impact is measured not by brief attention, but by sustained presence. Consistency transforms intention into influence and effort into meaning. In the early stages, consistency feels demanding. Progress appears slow, and results may not reflect the work being invested. This is where commitment is tested. Many voices fade because they expect immediate validation. A voice that rises learns to continue without constant reassurance, trusting that repetition builds credibility. Consistency creates reliability. When a voice shows up again and again, clear in message, steady in values, and honest in expression, it earns trust. People begin to listen not because they are impressed, but because they believe. Over time, this trust forms the foundation of legacy. Through consistency, growth becomes inevitable. Skills sharpen, confidence deepens, and understanding matures. The voice evolves without losing its core. Each repetition reinforces identity and strengthens impact, turning effort into lasting contribution. A legacy built on consistency outlives moments and trends. It remains present even when attention shifts elsewhere. And through steady commitment, a rising voice becomes something greater than expression. It becomes a lasting influence. Authenticity is the foundation of a rising voice. People can sense when words are forced, when actions are performative, or when motives are unclear. A voice that is authentic resonates deeply because it is real, unfiltered, and grounded in truth. Authenticity builds respect in a way that fear, power, or influence never can. Being authentic requires courage. It demands honesty about strengths and weaknesses, successes and failures. It means speaking from experience, not from expectation. A voice that is authentic does not try to fit into molds or imitate others. It defines its own standard and adheres to it consistently. Authenticity also demands alignment. Thoughts, words, and actions must converge. When the voice says one thing but acts in contradiction, respect is lost. But when authenticity guides every choice, it inspires trust and admiration. People are drawn to those who are real because they reflect the possibility of being real themselves. A voice that is authentic is unshakable in the face of criticism. It does not bend to please, and it does not compromise core values for temporary approval. Instead, it communicates with clarity, integrity, and confidence. Its influence is not fleeting, it is rooted in credibility. Over time, authenticity transforms a voice into a beacon. It not only communicates a message but also embodies it. When people witness authenticity in action, they are moved, compelled, and empowered to respond, making respect and influence a natural consequence of truthfulness. Resilience is the secret force behind every rising voice. Challenges, failures, and obstacles are inevitable, but resilience determines whether these experiences break a voice or strengthen it. A resilient voice does not fear setbacks. It uses them as opportunities to grow, adapt, and refine its message. Setbacks often feel personal, like proof that the effort was wasted. Yet, a resilient voice understands that failure is not final. Each obstacle provides insight into weaknesses, highlights areas for improvement, and tests the depth of commitment. Instead of retreating, resilience transforms disappointment into direction. Resilience requires mindset. It demands a shift from asking "why me?" to asking "what can I learn?" This perspective empowers the voice to take ownership of challenges rather than become a victim of circumstance. It turns frustration into fuel, uncertainty into strategy, and struggle into experience. Over time, resilience builds confidence. The voice learns that endurance is more valuable than speed, that recovery is more impactful than perfection, and that persistence in adversity is a defining trait. Each time the voice rises after a setback, it gains momentum, credibility, and strength. A resilient voice inspires through example. People notice not only the words spoken but the ability to continue despite adversity. This ability to transform setbacks into stepping stones becomes a model for others, showing that true power lies not in avoiding challenges, but in facing them unflinchingly and continuing to rise. A rising voice is driven by vision, a clear sense of direction that shapes every decision and action. Vision is more than a goal, it is a roadmap that aligns purpose, effort, and intention. Without it, energy dissipates and even the strongest voice can drift aimlessly. With vision, however, every step becomes meaningful and every challenge gains context. Vision provides clarity in moments of uncertainty. When the path forward seems unclear or obstacles appear insurmountable, a well-defined vision acts as a compass. It reminds the voice of the bigger picture, reinforcing why perseverance matters even when immediate results are invisible. This foresight turns frustration into focus and doubt into determination. A voice guided by vision also communicates with confidence. People are drawn to those who know where they are going and why. Vision gives words weight and purpose, ensuring that the message resonates beyond momentary attention. When others see that a voice is anchored by conviction and direction, trust naturally follows. Vision requires patience. It demands that the voice resist shortcuts, endure delays, and navigate setbacks while keeping the ultimate destination in mind. Each step, even small or unseen, contributes to the larger goal. This long-term perspective transforms ordinary effort into extraordinary impact. When vision is clear and unwavering, a voice not only rises, it leads. It inspires others to follow, aligns action with meaning, and creates a pathway that others can see, believe in, and emulate. Vision transforms a voice from mere expression into purposeful influence. Empathy is a powerful force that strengthens a rising voice by connecting it to others on a human level. A voice alone may be heard, but a voice that understands and feels the experiences of others resonates deeply. Empathy allows a message to reach hearts as well as minds, turning communication into connection. A voice guided by empathy listens before it speaks. It pays attention not only to words but also to emotions, struggles, and unspoken needs. This understanding shapes the message in ways that are meaningful, relevant, and impactful. When people feel seen and understood, they are more likely to embrace the ideas being shared. Empathy also fosters trust. A voice that demonstrates genuine care builds credibility, because people instinctively respond to those who respect their perspectives. Empathy reduces barriers, softens resistance, and transforms skepticism into openness. It allows influence to grow organically rather than through force or authority. Moreover, empathy inspires action. When a voice communicates with understanding, it motivates people not just to listen, but to participate, to reflect, and to contribute. It transforms messages into movements, individual awareness into collective effort, and words into shared purpose. Through empathy, a rising voice becomes more than a speaker. It becomes a bridge between experiences, a source of support for the unheard, and a catalyst for positive change. The depth of influence grows because connection precedes command, and understanding precedes persuasion. Adaptability is a cornerstone of a rising voice. The world is unpredictable, circumstances change, and resistance often comes from unexpected directions. A voice that cannot adjust risks stagnation or failure, but a voice that embraces adaptability transforms challenges into opportunities for growth and innovation. Being adaptable requires awareness and openness. It demands the ability to assess situations honestly, recognize when strategies are failing, and identify alternative paths. Rather than clinging to rigidity, the adaptable voice evaluates options, experiments with solutions, and learns from outcomes, turning setbacks into lessons rather than defeats. Adaptability also strengthens resilience. When obstacles appear, a flexible voice does not crumble under pressure. It responds intelligently, adjusting tone, message, or approach to meet the moment. This ability to pivot preserves momentum and ensures that the voice continues to rise even in unpredictable conditions. Beyond survival, adaptability fosters creativity and leadership. It encourages exploration of new ideas, methods, and perspectives. By remaining responsive, the voice discovers innovative ways to communicate, influence, and inspire, often exceeding initial expectations or goals. A voice guided by adaptability gains credibility and respect. Others notice not just the message but the wisdom in how it evolves and navigates challenges. In this way, adaptability turns every obstacle into a stepping stone, demonstrating that flexibility, insight, and persistence together are a recipe for lasting impact and meaningful influence. Courage is contagious. A voice that speaks despite fear, uncertainty, or opposition sends a powerful signal to others. If one can rise, so can they. Courage does not only empower the individual, it sparks action in those who witness it, turning inspiration into tangible change. A voice fueled by courage embraces risk. It dares to challenge norms, confront injustice, or speak truths that others avoid. This boldness demonstrates that fear can be acknowledged without being paralyzing. Observers see that obstacles are not immovable barriers, but opportunities to act decisively and with purpose. Courage also clarifies priorities. When fear is set aside, the message becomes the focus rather than the reaction to resistance. Decisions are guided by conviction rather than hesitation, and each act of bravery reinforces the voice's integrity and authenticity. This clarity motivates others to follow with confidence, knowing that the path, though challenging, is grounded in purpose. Importantly, courage is learned through practice. Every time a voice rises despite doubt, it strengthens not only its own resolve but the belief in what is possible. Others who witness such bravery gain permission to face their own fears, to speak their truths, and to take action even when the outcome is uncertain. A courageous voice becomes a catalyst. It transforms inspiration into movement, hesitation into initiative, and potential into achievement. By modeling bravery, the voice shows that action is possible and that each individual has the power to rise and make a difference, regardless of the obstacles they face. Patience is the silent architect of mastery and the foundation of a rising voice. True growth rarely occurs overnight. It is cultivated through persistent effort, reflection, and the willingness to endure delayed results. A voice that understands patience knows that progress is measured in accumulation, not immediate recognition. Patience requires perspective. It allows the voice to see beyond temporary setbacks, distractions, or failures. Rather than succumbing to frustration, a patient voice evaluates the journey as a series of interconnected steps. Each small effort contributes to skill development, clarity of expression, and the refinement of message. Through patience, the voice learns to balance urgency with timing. Speaking too soon or reacting impulsively can dilute impact, while waiting for the right moment enhances resonance. Patience teaches discernment, knowing when to act, when to reflect, and when to listen, ensuring that each expression of the voice carries weight and purpose. Patience also strengthens resilience. The ability to endure long periods of unseen effort without losing focus or motivation builds inner strength. It transforms challenges into lessons, mistakes into experience, and setbacks into preparation for future success. Ultimately, patience allows mastery to emerge naturally. The voice becomes polished, intentional, and influential, not because of haste, but because of sustained, thoughtful effort. It demonstrates that excellence is earned gradually, and that the power of a rising voice grows exponentially when nurtured with patience. Integrity is the backbone of a rising voice. Without it, influence is fleeting and messages lose their weight. A voice that consistently acts in alignment with its values builds credibility, trust, and long-lasting respect. Integrity ensures that words are not hollow, promises are not broken, and principles are never compromised for convenience or gain. A voice rooted in integrity demonstrates consistency. Actions reflect beliefs, decisions honor commitments, and communication is honest, even when the truth is uncomfortable or unpopular. This alignment creates reliability. People learn that what they hear is genuine and what they witness is authentic. Integrity also strengthens resilience under scrutiny. Opposition, criticism, or misunderstanding will inevitably arise, but a voice guided by integrity remains steadfast. It does not waver to appease others, distort the truth, or seek temporary approval. Instead, it maintains alignment with core values, which becomes a source of inner strength and confidence. Moreover, integrity amplifies influence. People are drawn to leaders, speakers, and voices they can trust. When integrity is evident, others are more willing to listen, engage, and act upon the message. A single consistent, principled voice can inspire loyalty, motivate change, and create a ripple effect that reaches far beyond its immediate audience. Through integrity, a rising voice becomes more than sound, it becomes authority grounded in principle. Its credibility is not demanded, it is earned. And this earned trust transforms influence into lasting impact, demonstrating that true power lies not in persuasion alone, but in principled authenticity that withstands the test of time. Consistency is one of the most powerful tools a rising voice can possess. A voice that shows up reliably, communicates steadily, and adheres to its values over time earns trust that no momentary success or flashy performance can replicate. Trust is not given lightly, it is cultivated through repeated demonstration of reliability and sincerity. A consistent voice reassures others. People learn that they can depend on it to speak the truth, uphold commitments, and act with integrity. This predictability does not imply rigidity. It reflects a steadfast adherence to principles while navigating the inevitable fluctuations of life and circumstance. The audience comes to understand that this voice is anchored, reliable, and authentic. Consistency also reinforces identity. A voice that aligns its words with actions across time solidifies its presence and authority. In moments of uncertainty, this alignment provides clarity, showing that the voice is guided by conviction rather than fleeting emotion. Repetition of values and messages strengthens recognition and credibility, making the voice memorable and respected. Moreover, consistent effort fosters patience and endurance. Challenges, criticism, and temporary setbacks become less intimidating when the voice knows that its reliability and dedication are unwavering. Each repeated effort compounds influence, gradually establishing authority that endures beyond immediate attention or transient popularity. A voice built on consistency communicates more than ideas. It communicates reliability, integrity, and commitment. Over time, this fosters deep trust, cultivates meaningful relationships, and magnifies influence, proving that steadfastness is as essential to rising as passion, talent, or inspiration. Gratitude is a quiet yet powerful force behind a rising voice. It nurtures humility, fosters meaningful relationships, and deepens the impact of every word spoken. A voice that expresses gratitude acknowledges the support, opportunities, and lessons that contribute to its growth, creating a sense of connection that resonates far beyond the speaker. Gratitude transforms perspective. Instead of focusing solely on obstacles, the voice recognizes progress, guidance, and encouragement received along the journey. This acknowledgement cultivates optimism and resilience, turning challenges into opportunities for learning and setbacks into reminders of the value of perseverance. A grateful voice strengthens bonds with others. By appreciating mentors, collaborators, audiences, and even critics, it fosters trust, loyalty, and mutual respect. People are drawn to voices that value them, and this sense of recognition encourages engagement, collaboration, and shared purpose. Gratitude also enhances authenticity. When a voice openly acknowledges the contributions and experiences of others, it reflects humility and self-awareness. This honesty makes the message more relatable, credible, and impactful, demonstrating that influence is not exercised in isolation but in the context of community and shared effort. Moreover, gratitude nurtures a positive cycle of influence. A voice that expresses appreciation inspires others to do the same, creating an environment of encouragement and support. Through gratitude, a rising voice not only strengthens its message but also deepens its connections, amplifies its reach, and solidifies its role as a source of inspiration and empowerment. And so, the story of Joe Ranga reminds us that a voice is never just sound, it is courage in motion, resilience in action, and hope made tangible. Every rising voice begins as a spark, nurtured by purpose, strengthened by persistence, and guided by integrity. It inspires, challenges, and transforms, proving that one voice can ripple into thousands, one act of courage can ignite movements, and one determined spirit can leave a legacy that outlives time. Let your voice rise, not for recognition but for truth, not for applause but for impact. Stand unwavering, speak with clarity, and act with purpose. Because the world doesn't just need voices, it needs voices that rise.